Namaste, aloha. My name is Janapati Das. Welcome again to the Bhagavad Gita as a Bhagavad Gita class. Bhagavad Gita, where we will read and comment, read the purport from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As we begin this class, let me offer my respects to you, and if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. We have many wonderful classes on different scriptures, some music, and different things that we're continuously adding to this channel. I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to the author, not the author, but the translator and purporter, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, my spiritual grandfather. We will begin with some hearing and chanting of Krishna's names in Kirtan. So if you've not done this before, this is a singing of mantras. Mantra comes from the two Sanskrit words man, which means the mind, and tra, which means to draw away. So the spiritual sound vibrations of the mantras help take us away from this interaction of our mind with this material world and the troubles of our mind. Help calm the mind down and help us focus on spiritual aspects of who we really are, and come to understand our true identity as spiritual, in essence, part and parcel of Krishna. So in this process we will chant. I'll chant the things first time through, the mantras first time through. You can listen, take into your heart, and second time through, sing back with me. Namaste Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Krishnaya Namaste Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Swarupaya Radha Krishna Krishnaya Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasudeva Haribo. Krishna Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Godakaruna Swarupaya Radhakrishna Prasthayate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Haribo. So, we've started chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. We are approaching the last 3 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Such a wonderful and amazing. I wish I could just do these scriptures over and over again, because every time I do it, it's amazing. It's been a wonderful journey going through these purports of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, Song of Sri Krishna. And so, yeah, let's get into the divine and demoniac nature. So this is text 1 and 3. I'm going to plow through the Sanskrit. Here we go. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Bayam Sattva Samshudir Gana Yoga Vyavashtiti Danam Damascha Yajnascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam Ahimsa Sattvam Krodas Tyaga Shantir Apayashunam Daya Bhuteshava Alulu Tvam Mardavan Hri Achapalam Teja Kashama Dirti Shacham Adroho Natiman Nita Bhavanti Sampadam Davin Abhijatasya Barat. So maybe you've heard some repeated words there that we've come across before. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Abhyayam, fearlessness, Sattva Samshuddhi, purification of one's existence. Jnana, knowledge, yoga, of linking up, Vyavashtihi, the situation, Dhanam, charity, Dhamma cha, and controlling the mind, Yajna cha, and performance of sacrifice, is our word yajna, Svadhyaya, yaha, study of the Vedic literature, Tapaha, austerity, Arjavam, simplicity, Ahimsa, non-violence, Satyam, truthfulness, Akrodhya, freedom from anger. Very interesting. Krodhya, which is considered to be one of the gates leading to hell, anger. Once again, if we put the A in the front, Akrodha, freedom from anger. So the freedom part is putting the negating A, A in the front of the word of the transliteration. Tyaga, renunciation, Shanti, tranquility, Apaishunam, aversion to fault finding, Dayad, mercy, Bhutesha, towards all living entities, Alulup Tvam, freedom from greed, Mardavam, gentleness, Harihi, modesty, Achapalam, determination, Teja, vigor, Kashama, forgiveness. I love that word, Kashama. Kashama is forgiveness. It's such a great word. I love that word, Kashama. Dirtihi, fortitude, Shaucham, cleanliness, Adrohaha, freedom from envy, not, Atit manita, expectation of honor, Bhavanti, become, Sampadam, qualities, Divim, transcendental, Abhijatasya, one who is born of, Bharat, O son of Bharat. Wow, so the very, very packed 1 through 3, here we go. The blessed Lord said, now pay attention, there's quite a few here, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity and simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion, and freedom from covetousness. Covet is to desire to want to control other people's things or have other people's possessions. Gentleness, modesty, and steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, and the passion for honor. So that's one thing, freedom from envy and the passion for honor. So not passion for honor, it's the same thing, but freedom from passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharat, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. So it said that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has said that there are two kinds of people, human beings. Those who are demons and devotees or demigods. And it's not to say that, there's a bunch of demons or lizard men running around, but there are people who are acting in a very demoniac way, in other words, and in the next verse will explain the demoniac qualities. Basically, people who are devoid of these kinds of godly qualities are very demoniac. They're doing things in aversion to God's will, in other words. Even if they think that they're doing the best thing for society, actually it's not. Almost want to read through the verse again, but maybe we'll read through after we read these purport, because the purport goes through each section. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. So we discussed this thing, how the material world is likened to an inverted banyan tree with the roots and the branches going out and down, and the branches and the leaves, and the branches, the trunk, all going downward, and the roots are going upward. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entity, some auspicious, some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter, also the devas, or godly, and the asuras, the ungodly, or demons, were explained. Now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious for the progress on the path of liberation, and such activities are known as Deva Prakriti, transcendental by nature. Those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. So we had a chapter on the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. It's best to be in at least the mode of goodness. From there, you can easily launch into the transcendental modes of goodness. When you're in the ignorance and passion, it's impossible to be liberated, but it's better to be in passion than in ignorance, of course, and it's best to be in goodness. And the only way that one can achieve that is through the process of hearing and chanting Krishna's names and receiving Krishna. One can be elevated from the lower paths of lower gunas. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animal or even lower life forms. So we discussed also previously about the process of karmic reaction and activities in the material world and the different modes of material nature. In the 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities, as well as the demoniac nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantages and disadvantages of these qualities. The word abhijatasya is in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies is very significant. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic literature as Garbhadhana Samskara. If the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles of the human being. In Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. sex life is not condemned provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. So there is a process, and and having children and engaging in the sexual activity should only be done in a marriage setting and should only be done for the procreation of children, which you can also raise that child in Krishna consciousness and help that living entity go back to Krishna. Now, there's even rules and regulations about what is done before having sex as well. So there is even a process with that the husband and wife will oftentimes make a food offering for Krishna, offer it to Krishna together, do certain kinds of rules and different kinds of steps to do that, and then have the sexual activity. So that is Krishna, sex life in the process of Krishna consciousness. Sex life is not condemned provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so they may become Krishna conscious after birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, like Hawaii, we have rampant invasive species, right? We have feral cats, and they just like run around and have sex with each other, or cockroaches that just mate, and they're all over the place, the pigeons or whatever. So they don't think, but yet, humans act the same way. They're just having children left and right, or which is actually because sex life has become very prominent in modern society just for the process of having sex and enjoying yourself, engaging in a material activity of sexual activity, that the idea of having even children is considered to be unpleasant. You don't want to raise a child, so abortion is very prominent in societies. Abortion is encouraged, and it being a woman's choice, and there's a whole argument about abortion, but in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Vedic scriptures, it's known that the living entity is actually present within the sperm. The sperm is transferred to the egg, and the baby is formed because the living entity is present at the moment of conception in the egg. So whether it looks like a child or not, it's still the living entity is present there. And it's actually very sinful to try to, in the same way that you would eat an animal or something like that and stop that living entity from progressing back to Krishna, you wouldn't abort a child at any point because that living entity has a spiritual path, and obstructing it, you will incur the karma of killing that living entity. So there's our little thing about anti-abortion. So something that I don't think even pro-life people are aware of, that it's not just, sometimes people make arguments on a very superficial level and they don't understand the spiritual reality of why you make these arguments, because they think of the child or think of a person as their body, and therefore they make an argument from the bodily perspective. And it's not a bodily perspective, it's a spiritual perspective. The social institution known as Varnashram Dharma, the institution of dividing society into 4 divisions or castes, is not meant to divide human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so he can get liberated from the material world. In the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi, or the person in the renounced order of life, is considered to be the head or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. A Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master of the three other sections of society, namely the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. But a sannyasi, who is at the top of the institution, is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmanas also. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness, because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support. He has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he thinks, after leaving my connections, who will protect me, he should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is always within, that he is seeing everything, and he always knows what one intends to do. So the main point here, because when we read the Bhagavad Gita, there's the Varnashram system, and it's very particular, and people might think, well, it's very good to, try to reinstate the Varnashram system in society. And the Varnashram system is existing, but in Kali Yuga, it's not really followed very accurately. And it's not really important. The main important is to take shelter of Krishna. It used to be in previous ages that we'd have the Varnashram system set up to help elevate people spiritually. But because we're in an age of Kali, of chaos, quarrel, and confusion, of corruption, the process of hearing and chanting of Krishna's names has been stated in the Sankirtan Yajna by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the sacrifice for this age. It's easy, it's simple, it can be followed very easy, and it doesn't require the technicalities of the Vedic system, the Vedic rules and regulations that were easier for people to follow in previous ages. So when we read through these, you can take it with a grain of salt. It's just a good thing to know in perspective. The main point is to just surrender to Krishna and chant Krishna's names. One must have firm conviction that Krishna, as Paramatma, will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone, one should think. Even if I live in the darkest region of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That is the psalm in the Bible, Psalm 21. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in beautiful pastures. Though I walk through the valley of death and shadow, the Lord is always with me. I shall not fear. I will not fear. So this is very true to the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, just abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me. I shall give you all protection. Do not fear. So we can take shelter in God because God is our shepherd. Our spiritual master is our captain of our ship. Krishna, he is the representative of Krishna. He is our well-wisher and our friend. He will protect us from the greatest danger. Now, does that mean that we won't suffer and deal with problems and death in this material world? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that Krishna will not forget us. Krishna will protect us in our transition from in this material world back to the spiritual world if we trust in him. And this is the message of all the Psalms, basically all scriptures, really, regardless of religion. So that's very beautiful. I love that. That conviction is called abhayam, without fear. So the conviction, this essence of the Psalm 21 of the Bhagavad Gita, is that we should not be fearful of, although there is danger at every step, we can take shelter in Krishna, and that will give us all protection. So it's not that we're ignorant of the dangers, but we are hyper aware that there is danger at every step, and we take shelter always in Krishna under the under the shelter of Govardhan Hill. Like, I was trying to think of something, Krishna. The state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. Then he has to purify his existence. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. Most important of all, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, his feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respects. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women, because the lust and desire of sex desire is so strong, and we're very loose in Kali Yuga, especially in the West. But there is a reason why brahmacharis are trained, and brahmatrinis are trained separately, because, and even in gatherings, traditionally it would be that women and men would be separated, not because women were a low class or hated by the men, but because of the sex desire, and that there is a place, as we've said, for sex desire, and there's a very large place for keeping our minds focused on Krishna and developing our relationship with Krishna, especially when we're going through hormonal changes in the teenage years. And that's generally when brahmachari, one should be focused on student life under the guidance of the spiritual master. And then when one is ready for marriage, or if they want to go into marriage, then they can enter the householder life and take a wife and have certain freedoms within a still regulated mean of the householder stage of life. Where was I? Okay. Although he is considered to be the most liberated incarnation of Godhead, accepting the most fallen conditioned souls, he strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyasa order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, namely Chota Haridas, not Haridas Thakur, but Chota Haridas, Junior Haridas, was personally associated with Lord Chaitanya along with his other confidential personal associates, but somehow or other this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he at once rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi, or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature and go back to Godhead, for him, looking toward material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking towards them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the processes of purification. Very difficult in this society with sex everywhere. It's just like, so to even look at something. So we try to keep our senses focused with Krishna as best as we can. The next item is Jnana Yoga Vyavashtihi, being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he is a beggar. Yeah, big difference. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendently situated person. And out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. And I think Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada made a point of stating of this example of this very powerful political figure who became a sannyasi in the end of his life. And he gave away his wealth and donned the sannyasi, and he would go and he would beg from his political enemies. That's the humility of being a sannyasi. But in this day and age, once again, to try to be a sannyasi is very difficult. So the varnashram system is not really recommended so much as is the chanting of Krishna's names as the prime sacrifice. This is a duty of the sannyasi, but if he is actually advanced and ordered by a spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding, and if he is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if he has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi, or one in the renounced order of life, must be situated in fearlessness, sattva shamsuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, knowledge. So not being afraid to go out, the purity of being spiritually focused with his mind, and jnana, knowledge, understanding the knowledge of bhakti yoga to preach. The next item is charity. Charity is meant for the householders. The householders should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. This is a very interesting point. Charity, and that word for charity is simplicity. Where is it? Abhiyanam, purification, jnana yoga. Danam, charity. So you can find charity actually in all religions. In the Quran, it's one of the pillars you should be giving. It's in the Catholic faith, it's a very big part of giving charity to help others. And this is in twofold. I mean, one, from a materialistic point of view, it's good to help other people. Spiritually, it's also good to help other people. It's not like just because we understand that the best charity that you could give to someone is to teach them about their identity as a spirit soul and as a servant of Krishna and what they should be doing in their life. This is the greatest charity. But you can help people. You can help because you care about people. It's caring about people, caring about other living entities as children of God. And secondly, it's important to know that the money and the things that we have in this life, according to the Sri Ishopanishad also, everything animate and inanimate is owned and controlled by God. So that we don't really own anything. If we have something, it's by the mercy and the grace of Sri Krishna. It's the grace of God that we have what we have. And we should be using those things in God's service. And one of those services is to help other living entities come closer to Krishna in any way we can. Whether it's, helping them materially, but also spiritually, caring about other people, and also just acknowledging the fact that we do not own what we have. And we shouldn't hoard it and think it is owned, because that is what creates attachment and belief that we are the supreme. This is our false ego. So in this case, devotees of Krishna should give 50%, up to 50% of their income to help propagate the Krishna consciousness movement, because traditionally, if you're in a householder situation, you're not out there preaching. If you're like a brahmachari, or a sannyasi, your service to your spiritual masters is to propagate and spread the teachings of Krishna consciousness. Now a householder may not be able to do that. You may be indirectly, but not really. He can't go out and leave his family. He's got his family, and that's his service. But part of that is, I'm making this money to help my family come closer to Krishna. I can also help others with it, instead of just like trying to enjoy the money that I'm getting for my own pleasure. So that's the main point. Thus, a householder should give in charity to such institutional societies that are engaged in that way. Charity should be given to the right receiver, So we shouldn't understand really what we're giving our money to. So it's not just, there are sacrifices and austerities and fasting in different modes. So there can be sacrifices in the mode of ignorance, for example, or austerities. For example, during the Christian maybe Easter or the Passover and the death of crucifixion of Jesus, people want to atone for their sins. So therefore, they sometimes will nail themselves to crosses or carry crosses long distance. You see this a lot in the Philippines and other places. And these are austerities in the mode of ignorance, because this doesn't actually make you any more spiritual, but it is an austerity to stick a nail into your hand in the board and carry a cross. Sometimes you go to the prisons and there are people who are fasting on strike for political purposes. That's not a spiritual, and those are in different modes as well. So there are different kinds of charities, right? As will be explained later on. Charities in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Charity in the mode of goodness is recommended by the scriptures, but charity in the modes of passion and ignorance is not recommended, because it is simply a waste of money. So, for example, you might see a homeless person. This is a pretty common one, and they want to have, they're just in a very suffering condition, and what makes them feel better is to drink or to do drugs. So they come to you and they ask you, can you give me some money and they want to buy beer, right? Or they want to buy some alcohol or some drugs to put them out of their, supposedly make them forget, which is the mode of ignorance. Now that is a waste of money, because you're not helping this person spiritually. In fact, you're actually contributing to their being attached to the mode of ignorance, which makes them become reincarnated in the mode of ignorance, whatever that might be, which is a lot of things. So we should be knowledgeable of what we're using our charity and our money on. Charity should be given only to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. That is a charity in the mode of goodness. Then as far as Dhammaha, self-control, is concerned, it is not only meant for other orders of religious society, but it is especially meant for the householder. Although he has a wife, the householder should not use his senses for sex life unnecessarily. Yeah, because when you come into a householder life, you're given certain freedoms, right? And the tendency as a householder is to be like, maybe you're not quite as strict because you're having children, you're working, and you have more things that you want to do in that family life to enjoy yourself. Whereas maybe as a student, you were very austere and strict because you had to make money or go to school or whatever. So it's a self-control. You should be able to control your senses even as a householder. Although he has a wife, a householder should not use his senses for sex life unnecessarily. There are restrictions for the householders even in sex life, which should only be engaged in for the propagation of children. If he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods or even more abominable methods to avoid the responsibility of children. Yes, that is what we were talking about earlier. When you want to increase the sex activity, there's more probability that you're going to get pregnant, and you're going to, or you want to stop, you want to just have sex without the possibility of getting pregnant. So you have condoms and contraceptives and abortion, and so this becomes very prominent because people think, oh, sex life is just normal. It's just what people do, We just do it, and we want to have fun and enjoy ourselves, but we don't want the responsibilities of having children or any of that. We want the good, the tingly part, as my spiritual master would say, the little orgasm flash that you have, that you spend so much time and money and effort to try to achieve just that short period of time. Very short for men. Modern society enjoys sex life with, okay, so I said that. This is not the transcendental quality, but it is demoniac. So this is demoniac. All this activity, abortion is demoniac. All this unnecessary sex activity is demoniac because it's contrary to what God's will. If anyone, even if he's a householder, wants to make progress in spiritual life, he must control his sex life, and he should not beget a child without the purpose of it serving Krishna. If he is able to beget children who will be in Krishna consciousness, one can produce hundreds of children. But without this capacity, one should not indulge only for sense pleasure. And you think about it, it's a really selfish means, because you have an opportunity, you're bringing this living entity into your field of activity in this world, and you have the opportunity to help that spirit soul, even if they choose later on not to chant. They have heard Krishna's names, they've come closer to Krishna, and they can pick up wherever they left off in their next life. Whereas, if you're just doing that and you're raising them just as materialistic kids without Krishna, being Krishna conscious, it's a waste of time, and it's very selfish and demoniac. Sacrifice is another item to be performed by the householders because sacrifices require a large amount of money. Other orders of life, namely the brahmacharya, the vanaprastha, and sannyas, have no money. They live by begging. So brahmacharya is student life, grihastha is householder life, vanaprastha is actually retired life. So it's between householder life. When the kids grow up, you retire, and it's not just like we're going to go to the Florida Keys on our retirement and enjoy ourselves, more sex and whatever we're going to do. It's actually a time where you engage in more service to your spiritual master, but you're not out earning money. Usually the kids who you've raised to be Krishna consciousness are now working as householders, and they will support the parents in the process, or other householders will support these. But the main point is that when you're retired, you're not engaging in sex life, you're not engaging in things of the previous status of life. So you're not a householder really anymore, because your kids are all grown up. You're retired from your work, and you're focused on spreading Krishna's names, but you're not quite a sannyasi yet, because you're still married, so you're engaging with your wife in service. The sannyasi is actually retired completely. He gives up any kind of financial support at all. He just goes around and does the begging himself to basically be able to sustain his body so he can preach continually. Now, once again, these kind of systems are not really sannyasis. You don't see people going around and begging unless they're homeless people who are just begging for money for some food or cigarettes or beer or whatever, just to be able to survive on the streets. They're not out there preaching Krishna consciousness. Okay, so performance of different type of sacrifices meant for the householder. They should perform Agnihotra sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literature, but such sacrifices at the present moment are very expensive, and it is not possible for any householder to perform them. No, not very many people know the Agnihotra. The best sacrifice recommended in this age is called Sankirtan Yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A very easy process. You can actually, chanting Krishna's names is very easy. It's lots of fun, and you can invite people to come to your house, and you can use your house, or you can work with other people in this either people who are householders or whatever. You can work together to set up kirtan concerts, which is what is going on all over the world right now. So you can keep your eyes out for that, because you never know when one of those is coming in your direction. If you want to know about that, I can put a link about some of the concerts that are going on the mainland right now, some in Europe as well, and other places. This is the best and most inexpensive sacrifice. Everyone can adopt it and derive benefit. So these three items, namely charity, sense control, and performance of sacrifice, are meant for the householder. Then Svadhyaya, the Vedic study, and Tapash, austerity, and Arjavam, gentleness or simplicity, are meant for the brahmacharya, or student life. So generally in the brahmacharya life is a student life, and it's for people previously before they become a grihastha or in the householder life. But you can actually, and ideally, you should remain a brahmacharya for your whole life. There are many cases where people were brahmacharyas their whole life, and they actually became sannyasis even when they were a brahmachari. Because brahmachari is Vedic study. So a brahmachari will, along with his regular studies, will study the scriptures, the Vedas, under the guidance of a spiritual master or disciple. Austerity. So there is austerity. So you're not, like I work in a middle school, and there's not austerity going on there. Kids are vaping, they're having sex, they're, doing whatever. They're engaging in nonsense. The girls are dressing like in their 20s. It's crazy. 13-year-old girls wearing little shorts and, doing their nails, doing their hair. The guys are just like, ooh, looking at the girls. So this is not brahmachari. Brahmacharis, that's why we separate brahmacharis and brahmatrinis. They're very austere. You eat very simple. You don't eat a lot of junk food. Ideally, you should be focusing on your spiritual life, developing your spiritual life, so that if you become a householder, you're not completely falling off the cliff. You have some kind of foundation in spiritual life. You can even continue to go on, and some people don't get married, or if they do get married, they don't have children right away. They continue to serve with this foundation that they've cultivated as a child. So ideally, it's great to raise your children in this process, so they have some kind of foundation. There is a danger, however, that sometimes people who've been raised in a materialistic way, they understand, like my wife and I, we were both raised in material. We weren't devotees of Krishna until we became adults. So we saw what the material world, what kind of desert it was, and we know exactly what it is. But sometimes, as if you're born into a devotee family, you think, this is not as interesting looking as that mirage out there in the desert, which they do all these things that I haven't tried yet. So maybe that's better than what I've been raised in. But they will find quickly that it's not, or maybe not. They'll just be lost in the desert. Brahmacharis should have no connection with women. They should live a life of celibacy and engage the mind in the study of Vedic literature for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge. This is called svadhyaya. Tapas, or austerity, is especially meant for the retired life, One should not remain a householder through his whole life. He must always remember that there are 4 divisions of life: brahmacharya, gridhastha, pranaprastha, and sannyasa. So after gridhastha, the householder life, one should retire. If one lives for 100 years, he should spend 25 years in student life, 25 years in householder life, 25 years in retired life, and 25 in the renounced order of life. These are the regulations of the Vedic religious discipline. So it's important to note that, like, even though we explained that in the age of Kali, we don't really follow the system so strictly, we can learn a lot of things from this, and then how we should be acting ideally in living in society. There are regulations of the Vedic religious discipline. These are the regulations of the Vedic religious discipline. A man retired from household life must practice austerities of the body, mind, and tongue, that is tapasya. The entire Varnashram Dharma society is meant for tapasya. Without tapasya or austerity, no human being can get liberation. So this austerity is, it's important to note that people think austerity, or they think, well, there's a sort of atheistic and hedonistic and satanic philosophy in modern society that's hedonistic. That's like, you should have no regulations. There should be no taboos. There should be nothing that should keep. And I say satanic because it's interesting that the Church of Satan, which is a real thing, there's actually a satanic Bible and a society of Satan worshipers. There is a lot of mythology around that, where you have like sacrifices and things that was with child. We would think black masses, and a lot of that's like play. But the philosophy that if you look into it, is basically this: hedonist. If you want to do it, if you do it, just do it. Just do it. That's a philosophy. If you want to do it, if it feels good, if you want to, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be, you should just do it. There should be no bars holding back on anything. And that is actually a satanic philosophy. It is very hedonistic, and it's actually contrary, because it causes great suffering to just do whatever you want to do. That's what people are doing in this society. They're just doing what they want to do. And as we do that more and more, and we encourage it more and more, society starts to fall apart, and there is chaos. And you can see this. You can see it with the progress of Kali Yuga, and the way that people act, the way that youth act, everything. So there has to be austerity. And for thousands of years, societies all over the world, traditional societies, have had taboos in place. You should not do this. You should not do that. You can do this, but don't do that. There are rules and regulations for a reason, because it's beneficial to society, and it's beneficial spiritually for the human being. So no human being, without tapasya or austerity, no human being can get liberation. You will stay in the material world if you continuously engage in it. That's what's being said here. The theory is that there is no need for austerity in life, that one can go on speculating and everything will be nice, is neither recommended in the Vedic literature nor in Bhagavad Gita. Such theories are manufactured by show bottle spiritualists who are trying to gather more followers. And there are actually a lot of impersonalists who are just like, just do it, like have lots of sex, because that's what God has created for you. And that's a way to show your spiritual, new age, crystal power kind of things. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, just do it. Just engage on your senses and on your desires, because holding it back is actually repressive and causes problems and blah, blah, blah. Actually, quite the opposite. If there are restrictions, rules, and regulations, people will not become attracted. Therefore, those who want followers in the name of religion just to have a show only, don't restrict the lives of their students nor their own lives. But that method is not approved by the Vedas. So there are plenty of people who want this kind of thing. So you can see guru this and guru that, Rajneesh and all these, so-called spiritual leaders who were demoniac, little demons. they were like, yay, let's have sex. They were having sex with their followers too. They were, and their followers' wives and children and animals and all kinds of homosexual activity, and just because they were thinking they were God and that they could do that, and they were encouraging people that you're God too, so you can just do whatever you want to do. It's really what it is. It's like not really different from the atheist hedonist who are like, oh, you're your own God, just do whatever you want to do, just do it. And these people who are like, yes, you are all God, you're all God. So they're kind of like the so-called spiritualist and the atheist are saying the same thing, and both are demoniac activities. As far as simplicity is concerned, not only should a particular order of life follow this principle, but every member, be he in the brahmacharya ashram or the gridhastha ashram or the vanaprastha ashram, one must live very simply. Yeah, live simply. Don't, live simply. That's a good motto, is to live simply. Live lightly. Be gentle, This desire to be God, this desire to just have a free reign on whatever desire we want to do, it causes so much pain and suffering in the material world by causing pain on the planet and on other living entities and bodies of animals and bugs. But if we live simply with the mentality that we should just use what we have and offer it to Krishna instead of just trying to exploit everything. And people are like, oh, we have such an exploitive nature, but you still encourage it in your philosophy that just do it. It's like you're saying one thing, you're hypocrites. You're saying one thing and still doing what you're complaining about. Ahimsa means not arresting the progressive life of any living entity. One should not think that since the spirit spark is never killed, or even after the killing of the body, there is no harm in killing animals for sense gratification. People are now addicted to eating animals in spite of having an ample supply of grains, fruits, and milk. There is going to be some killing of animals, not animals, but living entities. You can't avoid it, but you can minimize it. You don't need to eat animals, right? The bodies of animals, they have a central nervous system. They cause great suffering. It's unnecessary. It's unhealthy. It's bad for the planet. So many reasons, but also because Krishna doesn't like it, doesn't want it, because it's unnecessary. We should be practicing ahimsa by minimizing our as they say, carbon footprint on the planet. That is our minimizing. We can live it. Everything. See, all these things go to the point of us being spiritual in essence, of being part and parcel of Krishna, having a relationship with everything is related to Krishna consciousness. Everything is related. If we act on that mentality, we will constantly be thinking, acting without having to separately do things. We just will act and live simply, eat accordingly, offer what we can to Krishna to help benefit the spiritual growth of the person that we are eating. There is no necessity for animal killing. This injunction is for everyone. When there is no other alternative, one may kill an animal, but it should be offered in sacrifice. At any rate, when there is an ample food supply for humanity, persons who are desiring to make advancement in spiritual realization should not commit violence to animals. There's plenty of food. Everybody could be a vegetarian. We don't need to eat animals in this society. We don't need it. There's so much food, and I was looking at the statistics of how many animals are killed for, McDonald's and all these grocery stores and restaurants that sell meat, because the people want to enjoy eating meat. But it's so unnecessary, and so much pain, so much himsa, so much violence against other living entity. Real ahimsa means not checking anyone's progressive life. That is the point, which goes to also abortion. You're not doing things for your enjoyment, because everything you're doing, this great suffering, is causing people you're obstructing their spiritual progress, which is very sinful. displeasing to God, to be trying to progress other people's things so that you can be the Lord and Master of all these people. It's like, I, me, mine. If I want to eat these things, we can sacrifice these animals, we can sacrifice these living entities' spiritual progress for my so-called perceived happiness. If any animal is staying in a particular body for so many days and so many years and is untimely killed, then he has to come back again in that form of life to complete the remaining days in order to be promoted to another species of life. So yeah, the animal has to come back as an animal to finish that particular time of life. And the person that did that will have to take on that karmic reaction. So their progress should not be checked simply to satisfy one's palate. This is called ahimsa. It's very demoniac. I mean, this very clearly, that's why it's a demoniac nature. Satyam. This word means that one should not distort the truth for some personal interest. In Vedic literature, there are some difficult passages, but the meaning or the purpose should be learned from the bona fide spiritual master. That is the progress. That is the process for understanding Vedas. Shruti means that one should hear from the authority. One should not construe some interpretation for his personal interest. So, yeah, people do that all the time. Make up things, use scripture to try to, make money. There are so many commentaries on Bhagavad Gita that misinterpret the original text. So we've gone through this again. Even people can't even refer to it as Bhagavad Gita. They refer to it as the Gita because they don't want to put Krishna in the role of the speaker. I've cited this example of the person who was talking about Oppenheimer, who would translate the Bhagavad Gita and used to quote the Bhagavad Gita and misquote, use it for his personal interest, and he ultimately committed suicide. So the real import of the word should be presented, and that should be learned from a bona fide spiritual master. That's why this is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada translated it and entitled it Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is what it is. It really is. From the words of Krishna, handed down from Krishna through a disciplic lineage of pure devotees of Krishna. So we've heard from learn from a bona fide spiritual master. The real import of the word should be presented, and that should be learned from a bona fide spiritual master. I got some little living entity trying to bite my leg. Akrodha means to check anger. This is a great one. Even if there is provocation, one should be tolerant. For once one becomes angry, his whole body becomes polluted. Anger is the product of the modes of passion and lust. Right. So passion, lust, desire to control. And we've gone through these translations, or these verses before. When contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them, and from attachment comes lust, and from lust comes anger. So we have to avoid the anger by fixating our attention on Krishna and spiritual matters and not on material matters. Apaishunam means that one should not find fault with others or correct them unnecessarily. Of course, that's a very interesting point. It's something that I've reflected upon even when you're engaging in spiritual, discourse on social media. It's very popular to engage in and to make insults on people. On one thing that is mentioned is that in spiritual life, one should not try to unnecessarily agitate people. So this is why I avoid making political comments on things unless somebody is having a conversation, a friendly conversation of discourse, inquiry and whatnot. But a lot of people are not. They're just like putting it out there, and then other people that well, da 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 da. And this is something that you shouldn't find fault or correct them, but in the same way, you shouldn't try to agitate people. Even when you're aware of faults of others, because you have your own faults, you shouldn't lead with that. Of course, to call a thief is not fault finding, but to call an honest person a thief is very much offensive for one who is making advancement in spiritual life. Hulihi means that one should be very modest and must not perform some act which is abominable. Achapalam, determination, means that one should not be agitated or frustrated in some attempt. There may be failure in some attempt, but one should not be sorry for that. He should make progress with patience and determination. Everything is Krishna's mercy. Or the word tejaha, used here, is meant for the kshatriyas. The kshatriyas should always be very strong. The kshatriyas should always be very strong to be able to give protection to the weak. They should not pose themselves as non-violent. If violence is required, they must exhibit it. Saucham means cleanliness, not only in mind and body, but in one's dealings also. It is especially meant for the mercantile people who must not deal in the black market. Natim manita, not expecting honor, applies to the Shudras, the working class, which are considered, according to Vedic injunctions, to be lowest of the 4 classes. They should not be puffed up with unnecessary prestige or honor and should remain in their own status. So Bhaktivedanta is talking about particular stages, but this is also applicable to people in general. It is the duty of the Shudras to offer respect to the higher class for the upkeep of the social order. All these 16 qualifications mentioned are transcendental qualities, and they should be cultivated according to the different statuses of the social order. The purport is that even though material conditions are miserable, if these qualities are developed by practice by all classes of men, then gradually it is possible to rise to the highest platform of transcendental realization. So that's an amazing 3 verses, and that took me quite into this class. This is probably one of the longest classes, but a great verse to reflect upon and read over and over again. Next time we will get into the demoniac qualities in text 4. Until then, thank you very much. Namaste.